The information provided in this podcast is educational and not intended to diagnose or treat medical conditions.
Dr. Doni Wilson struggled for decades to solve her numerous health issues and heal her body. But with focused determination, she healed herself. And in doing so, she discovered the Dr. Doni Stress Recovery Protocol. On this show, you're going to hear from doctors, nutritionists, and experts, along with Dr. Doni, who will give practical advice and wisdom to help heal your body. This is how humans heal.
Hi, it's Dr. Doni. And I just came inside from shoveling snow. It snowed, for those of you who are not in the tri-state area. Well, I guess there's probably snow all across the country now, but I'm on Long Island, and we definitely got some snow last night. And I think it's actually starting to snow again. You might be able to see. I'm trying to think a little bit out my window. I don't know. Maybe the glare is too much to see the snow out the window, but it's it in some ways, like last winter, it really didn't seem to snow, like more than a tiny bit. So having snow already mid-December is like, oh my gosh. It's like, okay, winter's here. Here's this, whole process where it snows and we gotta put things away before it snows and then work to get the snow off the driveway and the porch so we can get in and out. Of course, it's interesting to me because I think since the pandemic, it's like there's a different sense. Like I think in years past, when it would snow, it would feel, in some ways, some people welcome a snow day because you're like stuck inside and you have an excuse why you can't go and do stuff. But now, having had months of a pandemic where we've been inside, in some ways, it almost seems like a usual day, like, hey, I can't go anywhere today, which has been the case for a while. And so it's interesting to me just kind of thinking through what that's like to have a snow day during a pandemic. I wanted to talk today, and this is what I'm planning to talk about, is I want to transition and start talking about burnout, which in a lot of ways, snow days actually kind of reminds me of that too, because many years, and I think I can take this hat off now, I'm realizing I'm getting hot inside. Many years of when my daughter was young. Now my daughter's 18, by the way. I just need to shut this door. Many years when my daughter was young, I was challenged to figure out how to get the car taken care of in the snow, and make sure my daughter was taken care of at the same time. And of course, when she was older, then she could come outside with me. But I don't know if some of you have been in that position too, where you're trying to figure out how to take care of your kids at the same time as getting things done outside. And to me, that those moments when you're pushed to your max, when you're like, how am I going to do all of these things on my list? That's when sometimes it becomes clear that burnout is happening and burnout exists. When you hit that overwhelm, when you hit that moment of like, what am I going to do here? How am I going to do all of this at once? And maybe some of you can relate to that. This term burnout is, I think, used more and more. At the same time, it seems to me the definition of burnout has shifted a little bit over the years. And I'm seeing it, come back again into use as a, I think before it was kind of like maybe if we had like a big project and we were doing a lot and maybe not getting enough sleep, and that certainly can lead to burnout, just like pushing yourself hard and doing a lot for a period of time, not getting enough sleep, maybe not getting to eat regularly, not getting to take care of yourself, even take your vitamins or drink water, or some of these basics like eat and sleep and go to the bathroom when you need to, that can definitely lead to this, what we call burnout. And but burnout can look different for different people. It could look like fatigue. Like some people, it's like you just crash, like you just like feel like you were hit by a truck and you just want to sleep for a week or a month or until you can function again. By the way, this is Alexandra, but we call her Allie. I don't think she realizes that she's on camera, but she's my desk cat for now anyway. And so fatigue, I don't know if some of you can relate to that, where you just feel like exhaustion sets in and you just have, fatigue, where your body's literally like you have sand bags holding you down and you can't move your feet and you can't open your eyes and you just have to fall asleep. And then there's people who experience burnout more like anxiety, like just super duper anxiety, where sometimes you can't even get a break from the anxiety. So your whole world, your whole existence, every moment of your day, and even when you're sleeping, is just this process of anxious thoughts, ruminating thoughts, worries. And sometimes when that's going on, you almost get to a point of wondering to yourself, is it the thing I'm worried about, or is it just that my brain is so anxious it's going to find something to worry about? And that's likely the case. The nervous system is so stressed out that it's just going to find something to worry about. And that can come with irritability for some people too. So some people, it's like, it can feel like everybody else is moving too slowly and doesn't understand, and nothing is going the way you need it to. And so that can lead to like this irritability where you just want to just everybody's irritating you and you just feel like everything is, not going as planned. And you know what I mean? You're just like, want to just go in a room by yourself and come out a different day. So it can look like that. It can also look like depression. It can look like body aches and pains. For some people, it's a migraine, a headache, a joint pain, a stomach pain, stomach cramping. So it can show up on a physical level too, not just kind of in your brain. It can be on a physical level, and it could be more than all of these things at once. It could be where you're feeling tired and in pain and anxious and depressed all together in one big bundle. And now when we think of this burnout concept, it's another way, I think, my understanding, and I'd love to hear from you, because this is the thing, is I'm always so curious about how we use these words related to being stressed out. We could say I'm stressed out, but burned out kind of means that this stress has now kind of like overcome you and gotten to the point where you're really feeling it and experiencing it, and maybe have a moment where you're like, oh my gosh, I got to do something about this. And to some degree, burned out could mean, not being able to maintain your same level of activity or quality of life. So maybe you get to a point of burnout where you're just like, I can't do anything more at this moment until I do something for myself or my body and my health. And so when I researched this concept of burnout, which I've been researching for over 20 years, I really realized that I was driven to research it because I was experiencing it myself. That's how I can describe how some of this feels, is because I've felt it myself. Being in naturopathic medical school and training as a midwife at the same time, for example, which meant being in like 20 or more credits of classes and being on call for births overnight and trying to keep up with all my assignments for years. So that, and then graduating and doing a residency, where in the residency, like you would presume with most residencies, there was more on my to-do list than I could accomplish in a day or a week. I had piles and piles of and lists of things I was trying to get done. And then I would go home and be sleeping and grinding my teeth and my head hurting. And then I went from that to starting my own practice and getting pregnant and having my daughter. And it was a whole different kind of burnout when my daughter was young. And so I just was very intrigued by this and wanting to research it. And so again, I think a lot of times we tend to dismiss stress, and sometimes we even might dismiss burnout. Like we might throw around that term like, yeah, I'm burned out, but what do we really want to do about it, or what can we do to prevent it? And what's going on in our bodies in the first place? Because to me, if we want to solve something, we need to understand it first. We need to understand what's going on in our bodies when we're experiencing these symptoms of burnout in order to know what our body needs to heal, right? So just from a maybe logical or, I think of engineering, reverse engineering burnout. So burnout is what starts to happen is it can, not only does it look different for each person, not only does each person experience slightly different symptoms, but it's because, and again, excuse me for my hair is such a mess today because I had the hat on and I was out shoveling snow. Burnout looks different in different people because there's different hormonal and neurotransmitter changes going on for each person. So no wonder it looks different. And we have different genetics, right? So we're actually, one of the things I realized over the years is that we're quite individual in the way we experience burnout. I would say as individual as our fingerprint, because we know that it's determined somewhat by our genetics. It's determined somewhat based on our past exposure to stresses, and it's based on the stresses we're exposed to now. There's so many variables that come into it. Of course, it's going to look different for each person. And so when you get down to it, it has these, slight variations that makes it sometimes hard to identify because if your experience might look different than the next person's. And so to me, to really understand what's happening, we need to look at, first of all, cortisol levels, because cortisol is our stress hormone, and it's going to get affected when we're stressed and we're burned out. Cortisol is going to get affected. The question is, how do they get affected for you? Is the cortisol too high at certain times of the day? Is it too low at certain times of the day? Or is it both? Maybe it's too low at certain times and too high at other times. But the reason I want to know what your cortisol is because the treatment is different. So if we know what got out of balance that created the burnout symptoms, then we can use specific approaches to help get it back in balance. A lot of times in the research too, when I read the research on stress or burnout, they study it as if it's the same thing for everyone, as if the treatments are going to be the same for everyone. And I'm really pushing for us to research it as unique to individuals. So I'm hoping in the future research on this will be more individualized. But right now, a lot of the research is as if we're the same. And so I need clinically, because my clinical experience, I can come forward and say, we need to interpret this research knowing that we're all individuals. And so we can see, is the cortisol high or low at different times of day? We can do the same with adrenaline. Adrenaline can be measured in urine. So can the neurotransmitters, serotonin, GABA, dopamine, adrenaline. We can measure these in urine. And then we can see how has your stress exposures and your genetics, how has it shifted your levels? Is your serotonin low? Is your GABA low? Is your dopamine high or low? Is your adrenaline high or low? Because as we look at these levels, again, then we know where we are. It's like, when you have a map and say you go in the mall or the airport and there's a map that says you're here. Because once you know where you are, then you can figure out how to get to where you're trying to go. But if you don't know where you're starting from, you could go in circles. And I think this is what happens to a lot of people who are attempting to help themselves out of burnout, is they don't really know where they are on the map. And so they end up kind of going in circles. And it can feel like you get a little better and then you get worse again. And then some other stress happens and you feel worse again, or you never get better. Some people have been struggling with fatigue and pain and some of these symptoms that I mentioned, anxiety, for years, for decades. And sometimes then you may be prescribed a medication to help, but really it's not solving the burnout. It's just turning off that symptom for a period of time, right? Like we can turn off pain for a period of time with a pain medication, but then now our body's addicted to that pain medication and we didn't really solve the burnout. So I'm always looking for what's the deeper level, what's really going on. And so I think, again, it's important to recognize that you're an individual in terms of how your burnout is going to look. So just I invite you to look at yourself now and say, not only am I experiencing symptoms of burnout, the past few weeks I've been talking about listening to the symptoms our body gives us and appreciating them and seeing them as signals, right? So we look at the symptoms we're experiencing and we go, oh, these are signals. Now, are those signals of burnout? How severe is it? Is it mild? Is it a 1 out of 10, a 4 out of 10, or is it a 10 out of 10? How severe are your symptoms of burnout for you, right? Because they could be different for different people. So what might be a 1 for one person might be a 5 for another person. So just for you, what are your symptoms of burnout? What are the symptoms, the signals your body's giving you that it's been under stress? And how severe is it from 1 to 10? And that gives you a sense of where you're starting from. But then what you need is to know exactly where you are on the map. You need to know your cortisol levels at different times a day, not just one blood level in the morning. You need to know, I mean, that's better than nothing if you can get a cortisol in the morning. But it's also better if you could do saliva, like spit in a tube, or do a urine sample when you wake up and then before lunch and before dinner and before bed. So we can see your cortisol different times a day. And then you would, with the neurotransmitters, you don't need to do different times a day because they're pretty steady all the time. Cortisol's really the only hormone that should be higher in the morning and decreasing through the day. Melatonin, on the other hand, should be high at night, and you can measure melatonin as well in urine or saliva. So we get this information. Then, like, imagine if there's a map. I need to actually draw this. Maybe after I get finished here, I'll draw this. I'm thinking of, you guys remember that show Dora the Explorer? Maybe it's still on. I used to watch it all the time with my daughter when she was little. She loved Dora the Explorer. And in Dora the Explorer, they have these little maps. It has a really clear, usually 3 sections to the map, right? Like you're going to go, through the jungle, and then you're going to climb a mountain, and then you're going to go to the beach, something like that. So imagine like if there was a burnout map. Are you, depending on how where your severity of your symptoms and your cortisol levels and your neurotransmitter levels, you're going to know, are you in the jungle? Are you on the mountain? Or are you going to the beach? And once you know where you are on this burnout map, then you can you're trying to go from burnout to feeling good, right? So you need to know, where are you in that process? And once you know, then you can, again, maybe like Dora, take the tools out of your backpack, get the right tools to get you there. Like if you take, like say your cortisol is too low and you take a supplement, let's say like ashwagandha. Now, ashwagandha, they've done a lot of different research, and some says it can help increase cortisol. Most studies, in my experience, is that ashwagandha decreases cortisol that's too high. So if your cortisol is too low, ashwagandha is not the best herb to choose. It's probably not going to hurt, but it's not going to help much. You need an herb that's going to raise your cortisol, like licorice or rhodiola or holy basil. So you need to pick the right tool based on where you are on this burnout map. And also, what I've found is there's a certain sequence of implementing, because if you jump right in to supporting cortisol that's too low, you might feel worse, even though that's what your body needs. Even though your body's burned out and your cortisol's burned way down low and depleted, that's not where you start. It seems at first like that might be the place to start, but I can tell you it's probably not the place to start. What we have to do first is we need to support the calming part of the nervous system. Because if we basically think of it like if we press on the gas pedal, when you don't have any brakes, it's not going to be a good thing. You're going to be speeding forward, jittery, anxious, can't sleep, more stimulated without any brake pedals.
Something a lot of people don't know is that too much stress can actually create an abundance of health problems like high blood pressure, high blood sugar, anxiety, migraines, insomnia, even fertility issues. This is because high stress puts your adrenal glands on overload. They release cortisol and adrenaline, which controls your digestion, hormones, immune system, energy, focus, and even your emotional response. So how can you beat stress when you don't know where to start? That's why we have a free 7-day stress reset program. It's designed to help support weight loss, digestive healing, and hormone balancing. It includes support for integrating self-care, daily tips come to you by email and video, gluten-free, dairy-free meal plans, as well as grocery shopping lists, journal pages, and more. This free program will help you beat stress and put you on the path to wholeness in your body. Get your plan now for free at drdoni.com.
So we need to make sure you have brake pedals first. So no matter where you are on the burnout map, our first step is let's make sure we've got some brakes. Because if we don't have brakes, you're going to feel worse. You're going to feel like you're racing through, and you could make anxiety worse. You could make sleeplessness worse. And so we want to calm things first. And I think of it like getting out of stress mode first. Stress mode is what got you to burnout in the first place. But if you're still in stress mode, how are you going to heal from burnout? Right? It's like it's impossible. It's like if you're still in stress mode, the body can't then heal from burnout at the same time. We need to first get out of stress mode, and then the body can heal. So the first step is build up the brakes, which is as you build up your brake pedal, you're getting yourself out of stress mode. So you're turning off high adrenaline or turning off high cortisol. So it starts with, this is why a lot of times you hear me talking about self-care. I think last week we talked a lot about how to create a self-care routine. And it's not just random that I talk about that. It's because as you create a self-care routine, you're getting yourself out of stress mode. You're creating a calm foundation to heal. And so that's why I talk a lot about what I call care. Clean eating, adequate sleep, reducing stress activities, and exercise. Now, of course, you're going to only exercise at your speed, because if some forms of burnout, you can't do much exercise. So it might just be literally 5 minutes of very mild stretching. Don't push yourself too hard if you're not ready for it. So care, this making diet changes, helping to support better sleep, helping to get some stress-reducing activities like we've talked about in other trainings. If some of you haven't listened, please go back and listen to those videos. Practicing gratitude, practicing meditation, biofeedback, deep breathing, journaling, listening to music, spending time in nature, taking a walk outside, spending time with your pets. These are all ways that we can help our body get out of stress mode. And the studies, again, have mostly talked about how these things help calm down cortisol and adrenaline. that's okay, because it means to me that it's helping get you out of stress mode, which is always the first step. So as you implement this self-care routine, these care activities, as you do this on a daily basis, even in small doses, even if you are like, oh my gosh, how am I possibly going to bring this into my life? I just have too much going on. Believe me, been there. I'm like, how am I possibly? And then you feel more stress trying to de-stress, right? So try to find just the littlest little crack in your schedule, in your brain, in your possibility of your awareness. Find the littlest crack where you could do something to help reverse this pattern. Because right now, if you're in stress mode, it's like you're paddling against a current. Maybe you feel that way sometimes. That would be another way that burnout might be described. Have any of you been in a boat, rowing the boat? Oh my gosh, I've too many times been in a boat rowing with the oars, and it feels like you're rowing against the current. So the current's going one way and you're trying to go the opposite way. It's like near impossible. You're, even for someone who's like super strong at a certain point, you're rowing and you're sitting in the same place. You feel like you're going backwards. So we need to solve that first. We have to solve that first. So you have to find a little crack in your world, in your existence, where you can do something, even for a minute or two, that's stress reducing. The other day, I was talking to a patient who really is in the throes of this. And I asked her if she'd had ever meditated before, or if she does meditate, and she said no. And she said that it didn't work for her. Like, she was so revved up and so agitated that she couldn't even think of, doing something that would be thought of as meditation. I always like to remind people that meditation doesn't have to be perfect. Like, that's the thing about meditation. It doesn't have to be sitting still, legs crossed, eyes closed, perfection, especially the first few times that you do it. Meditation is literally just observing your thoughts. So it could be as simple as, you probably do. I think we all probably do it on our own anyway. But, imagine if you're sitting at a stoplight or you're standing in line, so you can't do anything else, right? You're just stuck in this line, and you find yourself drifting off, thinking of, maybe you're having thoughts of some conversation you had, or you're having thoughts of some show that you watched. That's like a meditation, because you're not doing anything else. You're in this line, you're waiting for your turn, and you're just observing what's going on around you, or what's going on in your mind for those few moments. That's a meditation. Now, you could be doing that standing. You could be doing that outdoors with other people, by yourself, in the shower. I sound like Dr. Seuss. You can meditate anywhere, anytime. And so whether you call it meditation or not, maybe you have a different name for it. Maybe you just think of it as, I'm going to zone out. I'm going to, chill out, whatever you want to call it. Just taking a few minutes for yourself and allowing yourself that. I mean, yes, you could pretend that you're standing in line and that you have nothing else to do, if that helps you do it. Or if you can just give yourself permission. Sometimes we just have to give ourselves permission. Say, I give me permission to just sit here for 5 minutes and do nothing. Right? It feels like doing nothing. Believe me, I'm a person who, I had someone helping me with my snow on my driveway today. And for a few minutes, I had to practice doing nothing, because I'm used to doing it all myself. So if you're like me, if you're used to doing it all yourself, when you're going to sit and observe someone else doing it, it can feel like, oh my gosh, I'm doing nothing, which can seem like a bad thing, but it's actually a good thing. Maybe practice doing nothing. We could call it that. And the more you allow yourself that, the more you're sending the signals, you're allowing the signals from your brain to your digestion, to your vagus nerve, to your parasympathetic nervous system, which is your healing, restorative part that helps you recover from burnout. I was talking to a patient who's maybe about 12 years old the other day, and she's having trouble falling asleep at night. I'm feeling anxious. So we were talking about also how can she help send signals from her. Actually, I had realizing I had two patients. Oh my gosh, I love being able to help in that kind of teenage age group because it's such a key time in our lives to learn this. So if any of you have kids or teenagers, feel free to share this with them. Literally, to know that we have a nerve coming from our brain to our gut and all the rest of our body called the vagus nerve. And it's not just a one-way nerve. It goes from our brain down, but it goes from our body back up to our brain. And this vagus nerve can signal stress response, but it can also signal anti-stress. And if we can use ways to activate that vagus nerve, we can on purpose tell our body to relax. It's pretty cool, right? Like in some ways, it's almost like we're trusting that our body's going to know when to relax. We're hoping our bodies are going to know to recover from stress. And to some degrees they do. Our bodies are built with a stress recovery system. But if our body's in stress mode, it doesn't really engage in this recovery process very well on its own. So it helps if we can remind our bodies, give our bodies the right signals, because our brain is picking up on, here I'm staring into this bright light in front of me, picks up on lights, it picks up on sounds, it picks up on everything going around us, temperatures. So we need to give our body the right signals so that our vagus nerve knows it's time to de-stress. If our brain is picking up on stress constantly based on lights and thoughts and deadlines, and if our brain is picking up stress all the time, it's going to tell our vagus nerve to be stressed. And that's what creates burnout. So we need to purposely, here we are, humans living in this, with this brain, we need to intentionally put our body in a place, in a space, in a situation that gives it the right signals to de-stress. Whatever that looks like for you. There's nothing written in stone that says it has to be a certain thing for everybody. It can be whatever you like, but one of the most simplest that I like to share with the teenagers is I say, take a couple deep breaths. Literally we all need to breathe, right? And we figure we're breathing anyway, like we almost figure, oh, my body's going to breathe. At least I don't have to put that on my to-do list. But actually, if you put breathing on your list, it's a good thing because you can stop and take a couple deep breaths. And I invite you to do it with me now. And as you take a couple deep breaths, literally the function of breathing in and breathing out, as simple as that, it signals from your brain and your nervous system to your vagal nerve and sends signals through your body as anti-stress signals to get you out of stress mode, even for a moment or two. Pretty amazing, right? Like just some nice deep breaths. And it can start from there. You can go, okay, maybe I just get 5 seconds or 15 seconds every hour to breathe. Maybe I get, maybe that can become 15 minutes. Maybe that can become an hour. Maybe that can grow into deep breathing, but also other activities included, spending time in nature. So you're kind of overlapping multiple stress recovery techniques that, again, send this signal through your vagal nerve, but really send the signal through your whole body that it's getting a break from stress. And it gives you a chance to get out of stress mode. And once you're out of stress mode, then you can really be back to this burnout map, and you can be thinking, okay, now that I'm at a stress mode, I can see where I am on the burnout map. Now I can use this daily, not only self-care on a daily basis to get you out of burnout mode, but any herbs or nutrients or other things that specifically match where your cortisol and adrenaline are to help get them back to where you want them to be. And it's not just like, to some degree, you might be like, oh, is that just a temporary quick fix? We're so used to temporary quick fixes in our life, in our world. But no, it's not. When you can use substances like these, natural substances and natural activities to help your body reset, then it can maintain that. It can maintain, you can then use this self-care routine to maintain that new healthy state out of burnout, right? So now sometimes you might find yourself like, oh my gosh, I had all of this going on and I found myself back over in burnout again. But now you know the path. Now you know the path out of it. It's much easier once you know the path. The first time or the second time, you're like, I don't understand. I'm just lost in this dark forest that I don't know where to go or what to do. And I'm just feeling awful. But once you know, oh, you just use this tool, whatever that tool might be, an herb or a nutrient or both, use this tool at this time in this way and do these self-care activities, and you get yourself through. And you'll be able to repeat that again the next time, because the thing is that because based on your individual way of experiencing burnout, very likely you're going to experience burnout the same way the next time and the next time and the next time. So once you've learned how to resolve it for yourself, you can resolve it a lot faster. And usually you catch it a lot sooner too. Usually once you realize it and you feel better, you're like, okay, next time, and keep track and notice your symptoms. Okay, next time I feel this, I'm going to know I need to take these actions in order to address it before it gets worse, before it becomes most severe symptoms and really is that burnout, right? That ultimate burnout of just like crash and burn, basically, like, not being able to function and do what you want to do in your life. I mean, that's ultimately it, right? Like when we think about like, what are we doing here? We each have a purpose, something you want to fulfill, things that you love and enjoy, people you want to spend time with, and things you want to do with your life. And if you're not feeling good, that's going to be way harder. Again, I get it. There's been times when I was like, oh my gosh, how come I'm not able to get done what I'm wanting to get done. And then I realize, oh my gosh, I just need some recovery time. And again, because of the way I grew up, if I have a few days where I'm like not getting as much done as I think I should, right? Here's all these shoulds. Then there's a voice, right? There's this voice that sometimes is hard on us. Why can't I? I should be able to do this. I should be able to be, a super mom, a superhuman, a super duper, do everything. I'm not supposed to be affected by stress. We think we're invincible, but really no. If your body's giving you signals that you just need to like take it easy for a couple of days and your to-do list is going to have to hang there and wait for you, that's your body saying it needs some chance to get out of stress mode and get some recovery so that you can actually be more effective on the other side. A lot of times we push ourselves thinking I have to just finish this few more things by this certain time. And if we were to just take a break, this is another patient, she's a student doing online classes, and I think she's in her 20s, and she, the online classes, they're not even giving breaks. I'm like, oh my gosh, please, any of you, if you're in charge of running any kind of online meetings or classes, please give your attendees breaks, because you need a break too. And she would feel like if she would take a break, she might miss something. And And we're just drive ourselves so hard. And so I just want to encourage you to notice that and give yourself permission to even speak up and say, hey, I think we all need a break here. Can we have 5 minutes to go to the bathroom and get something to eat, please? I mean, sometimes it's that simple to be able to give ourselves this little drips through the day of self-care can make a huge difference at the end of the day. And if you're experiencing burnout, please know that, it's possible to recover. We just need to find little ways to start to shift this. Basically, if you're in this boat rowing against the current, we need to turn this boat around, get it and turn the current around, turn off the current. Basically, we need to just calm down all that stress so that you can row and do your thing without having to exhaust yourself. Can you imagine that that's even possible? How do we get to there? What do we need to do to get you out of stress mode and recovered so that you can just do your thing, your purpose, your passion without it having to exhaust you and send you into burnout? So let me just see. I'm wondering if I appreciate you guys who are here listening. And yes, I see here saying she's saying she does this by default. So I hope this even just shows you like, oh my gosh, you might go, oh yeah, I've done that. I knew that. Like, oh, that's why I just spent the past weekend, doing not very much, is because you were actually doing burnout recovery, which is really important. So sometimes we just have to reframe it and be like, actually burnout, sitting and doing nothing for a couple of days is not nothing. It's burnout recovery. And then you're going to be more effective when you go back in. Research over and over shows that we're more productive, more creative, and less likely to get sick when we've had a break, whether that's a minute, a day, a week, whatever that break is that you need. And of course, sometimes we have to keep up with life in the same time. So we just have to find a way to keep up with life while we give ourselves some amount of break. And I find that that's where using the right nutrients and herbs and support, it makes it possible. It makes it possible for you to keep doing your usual life and do your burnout recovery at the same time. But again, the first phase is get you out of stress mode, then burnout recovery, and then it's all about resilience, how to maintain that over time. All right, well, I'm so glad you joined me, and I got to go ahead back out and do a little bit more snow shoveling. So anyway, I hope you're having a good day, and this video will be posted so you can access it later if you'd like to listen again. And thanks for joining me. If you'd like more, let me see. If you haven't already, you can go to my website. It's drdoni.com, just DOCTORDONI.com. And you can get my, I should post a link for you all. There's my 7-day stress reset, which is 7 days of helping you implement self-care. And there's an adrenal, basically a burnout recovery guide, adrenal recovery guide that you can get when you sign up for my newsletter. I send a weekly newsletter. And so if you'd like to hear more from me and get updates from me, then if you sign up to get the newsletter and the burnout recovery guide, you got it all together in one. All right. Well, again, good to talk to you. Thank you all. And I know you guys got this. I'm hoping this just gives you little tidbits of information that helps you to see the big picture of where you are. Like, again, where are you on the map in terms of super duper healthy versus burned out? And depending where you are, let's get you on the path to recovering and being resilient. All right. I know it's possible. So I'm here to help you along the way. All right, take care.
Thanks for listening to How Humans Heal. If you liked this episode, leave a rating and a review. And for more resources, visit drdoni.com.